Welcome to STV Presents. I'm your host, Pastor Wendell Jeffrey. Happy Sabbath. I don't know what kind of a week you had. However, we are on the penultimate day of this week, and I hope that God has been good to you. I trust He has been good to you. And of course, I hope that you understand He has been good to you, because indeed He has been good to you. You know, this month is breast cancer. Celebrate in honor of breast cancer, this October month. And it coincides with the outroll, the launching of the HPV vaccine that the Ministry of Public Health is rolling out. And we had a program last week, and those of you who were listening, it was very testy. And so we were advised that we should do another one. And so I have in the studio with me a very special guest. When we come back from the break, you'll be very excited to know who we have here. Very professional gentleman, very handsome. You'll see him when we come back. You know, the cancer, I told you last week, my mom died with cancer. And it breaks you. It breaks not only the person who is diagnosed with it, but it breaks the family and the support group. And when I thought of this month, I heard this song a few months ago, and I like it, Rise by Andrea Day, and I thought that I will use that song as the theme song for this month. What I did is I put in some graphics of my own there, and so listen to the words, and I hope you enjoy it. When we come back from that break, I'm going to introduce my guests. We're going to talk a little, and then we're going to open the phone lines, okay? So for those of you who are streaming, or those of you who want to join us on the web, or you know people overseas, they can join us. We are also streaming at Guyana Trusted TV. And so we're streaming, and we're streaming live. So you can let your friends overseas know that they can join in on the program. And so we'll take your calls. It's not an interactive hour we're going to have here. So let's go to the break, Rise by Andrea Day, and then we'll come back and we'll discuss. I hope you enjoy this song. I do.
You're broken down and tired of living life on the merry-go-round, and you can't find a fighter, but I see it in you, so we gon' walk it out. Move mountains, we gon' walk it out, and move mountains. And I'll rise like the day. I'll rise up, I'll rise unafraid. I'll rise up, and I'll do it 1,000 times again. And I'll rise up, I'll like the waves. I'll rise up, in spite of the ache. I'll rise up, and I'll do it 1,000 times again. The silence isn't quiet, and it feels like it's getting hard to breathe. And I know you feel like dying, but I promise we'll take the world to its feet. Move mountains, bring it to its feet. Move mountains. And I'll rise up, I'll rise like the day. I'll rise up, I'll rise unafraid. I'll rise up, and I'll do it 1,000 times again. and for that we have each other. And we will rise, we will rise, we'll rise. Oh, we'll rise. I'll rise up, rise like the day. I'll rise up in spite of the ache. I will rise 1,000 times again, and we'll rise up. I like the waves. We'll rise up in spite of the ache. We'll rise up, and we'll do it 1,000 times again.
I hope you like that. I rise, I put in there the rising of the sun, and it was there. You speed up the time, and then the eagle. I love the eagle, I rise. You know, the song talks about I'll rise like the day. And for those of you who are diagnosed, or for those of you who are nursing or supporting persons who are diagnosed with cancer, I want you to know that I empathize with you. I get very teary. I don't want to even think too much about it, but I empathize with you. I understand your struggles. In the studio with me this evening is Dr. Shamdeo Prasad. Doc, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Pastor.
Dr. Shamdeo Prasad is the Chief Medical Officer. He is a gentleman. You know, I grew up rough on Lane Avenue there in the ghettos, and I am rough on the edges. And every time I've interacted with Dr. Shamdeo, he's so pleasant and calm. You know, you come at him all kind of how, and he always smiles. I admire him. And some of my rough edges were trimmed off as I tried to emulate guys like Dr. Shamdeo. So Dr. Shamdeo, I want you to know publicly that I admire you, I love you, I love your approach, I love your open-mindedness, your frankness, and your professionalism. You're here you can speak on many issues, but you're here for us to talk on this HPV rollout that you guys are doing. But let me give you a chance for those who don't know you. Who is Dr. Shamdeo Prasad?
Thank you very much, and I'm humbled too by all the good sentiments I receive. But you know, it's part of the job, and we have to do it. Somebody has to take care of what is important for the health of Guyana. And yeah, I'm a public officer. I'm appointed as the Chief Medical Officer. For the last 10 years, I've been working in that position, but for about 27 years in the health sector. Wow. And I've never worked in any other area except with the government services.
Okay. You family man?
Yes, I do. I have 3 kids, and yeah, we've grown and
Beautiful.
Getting things done.
Beautiful. All right, doctor, tell us a little. What is HPV in layman's term?
Well, this is a human papilloma virus. That's the meaning of the H, the P, and the V. And it's a virus that was discovered maybe about 30, 40 years ago. What they've also found is that there are many different strains of this virus. And the virus is, initially it was thought to be transmitted very casually, touching clothing, other casual contact. But more and more, as the research, were done, they found that it's mainly transmitted through sexual contact, all right, and even in the instance of blood, all right. However, main sexual contact. And over the last, say, 10 years or so, there have been definitive evidence to show that HPV is one of the causative factors in cervical cancer. We also know that it causes several of the warts, the different types of warts that people get, all right? And of the probably 30-odd different strains of HPV. They've identified 4 of them that are the key ones in causing these main problems.
Okay. What is cervical?
Well, cervical is a part in the female genital tract. It's like the mouth of the womb, all right?
Okay.
And just at the top of the vagina, there is a entry into the womb, and you know how the whole organism and how we are created is so important for you know, the adequate function of procreation.
Okay.
So that's the main, and it's a very important part, you know, that part of the female genital organs. It's not only protects against you know, any entry, especially during pregnancy, of any noxious agent or germ or so on, but it also serves as a holding bay, like a gateway sort of.
Okay.
It becomes a little challenging when it's exposed to these trauma, and especially this virus that causes the cells of the cervix to change. And that's really what cancer is about, you know. Cancer is any cell in our body that starts to misbehave, starting to abnormal.
Okay.
Normally our immune system would remove them.
Yes.
But if, you know, for some reason or the other we are not able to do that, then those cells will overtake our system.
Okay. So talk a little about this massive drive that you have for the HPV vaccination.
Yeah, well, we started this effort quite a while back. In 2009, we had a small pilot. We worked with the Planned Parenthood in New York, and they had donated some. We had a small pilot. However, globally, you know, WHO strongly recommends now the introduction of HPV to protect our female population. So about a year now, the decision was made, and we started, the technical team and the ministry started to work to put this together, all together. And from Minister Norton and then Minister Lawrence and Minister Cummings, they all fully support this effort. So we're actually buying our vaccines. You know, government has agreed that this is so important that they are procuring the vaccine.
And how many?
About 40,000 doses for the start.
And those are going to be administered to whom?
Those are going to be administered to girls between 9 and 13 years old.
Okay.
All right? We would definitely, after this initial introduction, we would look at the other age groups that we think might be necessary. Of course, for this vaccine to work, has to be given before the person commences, you know, their sexual life, before they're exposed. It's like any of the other 16 vaccines that we already give. Okay. We'd like to give it the earliest opportunity. So you'll see many of the vaccines we give them within the first year of life, and then you boost as you go along. But by 12 months, you would have been protected against almost 16 different germ or different infections.
So you going particularly to schools, right? With this,
yes.
with
Well,
this
the program as it's organized is jointly between the health centers and the schools. So we would be utilizing, because we do know that they're not that large number, but there are some girls in that age group who might be out of school too. So the health centers are also prepared to offer those. So we're starting with primary school, but then the 9-year-old, and we're hoping that before they get to secondary school, we would have given them their 2 doses.
Okay.
They need to get 2 doses within the 6-month period, 1, and then within 6 months a second dose.
Okay.
That provides you lifelong protection.
Lifelong protection.
Yes.
What does a person do who is not in school or who wants the vaccine but isn't a part of the schedule that you guys have?
Right. Well, we're inviting people, once you have questions, once you have inquiries, to come into the health centers. You know, we've briefed all the health workers. We had some training. We even worked with teachers and the PTAs and so on. So there is an open door. Please check with the health facility. You know, if the girl is not in school or for whatever reason, you might not fall into that group, check with the health facility. The nurses will advise you adequately, you know, what needs to be done.
Okay, and my research has shown that in some countries they're administering this to boys also.
Yes.
So in as much as you are saying that it might be a cost factor to where you're only starting with the girls right now. If a parent wants to have their male child inoculated, are you guys making provisions for that?
Not in this round, because we want to make sure that, you know, the group that we have targeted and we selected, and WHO has supported us through the revolving fund to ensure that we have adequate vaccines for the girls. So the calculations are done based on the female population in that age group. We will, and we have this done, we have a national interagency committee that looks at immunization altogether. And we even have an immunization, a bit of legislation that helps to guide us. And hopefully, you know, as we roll this phase out, we will definitely be looking at what advantages there are in terms of administering to boys also.
Okay, now I want to push this a little more, because some countries, the cutoff age is about 26.
Yes.
And so if an adult wants to pay, now that they understand that the implications or the complications of attracting this disease, or this virus, if an adult person wants to pay, is there any, can they buy this over the counter? Can they go to a private?
At this point, no. Well,
No.
we have some private centers that are working with us, but they are working within the guidelines.
Within the, okay.
You see, when you plan the thing about public health program, they always are built in those parameters as it goes. Because you really want to, you know, target the group that would get the maximum benefit from this vaccine. Someone who have already, and there are people who, you know, they claim that, well, they're not sexually active, but the exposure might have happened along the way. And I am not sure of the value of administering this vaccine to someone who has already been exposed to HPV. We are not sure about that value. But we really want to administer it to the people who will maximum benefit.
Right.
Right?
So I guess
that's how public health, you know, is structured all the time. And I hope the population understands that.
Yeah, well,
We
you
do
know,
have-
the
yeah.
beautiful, the catch-22 you have is that you come and you sell this program, and you're so convincing in your sale of the program that the person says, well, I want in.
Right.
I understand the problem and the likelihood of it, and I want in, but then you do
There are some
There
restrictions.
are some restrictions
yes.
right now.
So we will look at those. I'm sure that, you know, as we go along a case-by-case basis, there might be a few older girls, but we had quite a few. We already, I think for the older age group, we would have covered about 6,000 girls with 3 doses previously. So some of the girls are already, you know, who might have been in an older age group might already have acquired some amount of protection. Well, you know, it's something that we constantly speak about at the committee, and that we are looking for the options, especially the resources. I think that's the most important part of it, even though that won't prevent us from expanding this program. And, you know, we had to make, the initial pilot was done on selected regions, for example, but the decision was that this has to be a national program. And we have to include our hinterland communities where, you know, some of the rates of cervical cancer and breast cancer might be higher than some of our national rates. All right, so exposure is a delicate balance.
I understand.
Yes.
All right, Doc, is this is it compulsory when once it goes to the school?
It's voluntary.
It's not. It's okay.
It's voluntary, and we would, you know, we are inviting persons who feel that they, you know, they wish to discuss further of taking the vaccine for their children. We encourage them to come in, and let's have that discussion. But it's still a voluntary process.
Okay.
Right?
And the reason I ask is because only recently, I think a couple of days ago, there was this case of this girl, Rebecca
in the US,
Bedo, who was sentenced to a year because she was told she was told
to take vaccines.
So how you deal with the quandary, because the problem that she had, the situation that she had, is the child was from a, they were not together anymore.
Mixed,
Mom and dad were not together anymore, and the father wanted the child to have the vaccine, but she did not want the child to have the vaccine. And so they found her in contempt, jailed her, and while she was in jail for the week, the father had full custody,
of the child,
and
yeah.
because of that, he was able to have the child immunized. How do you guys, even though this is not mandatory, what do you say? How do you deal with a situation where one parent says yes and the other says no?
I think it's for us here. It's always been to to provide the right information and to assist in negotiation. It's all about the negotiation sometimes. Unfortunately for us, we do have some provisions, legal provisions, to give vaccines here. And of course, most entry into schools, both public and private schools, require immunization. And it has served us well. I cannot come on a program like this and not talk about the fact that we have not seen for more than 20 years a measles case.
Beautiful.
We have not seen polio in Guyana.
Beautiful.
We had a few cases of pertussis over the last 10 years or so, and those were imported cases. Right, so we actually won a few years back. We were placed number 3 in the world at WHO for our vaccine program. Okay. So there are good things about this, and I think the fact that lots of us are here, in the time when smallpox, measles, and polio was probably affecting a large number of people. We are here now as adults, and
I want to touch on that because I want to dig some more into that. The phone lines will be open. We'll open the phone lines, okay? 218-4949. You can call us because we want to hear from you, okay? But Doc, as we move forward, there are some people who think that for religious reasons they shouldn't get the vaccine. How do you deal with something like that?
Well, here again, I think the discussion with them is very important. There are persons who refuse vaccines based on the fact that how it's produced. All right, like people are strict vegetarians and so on. And with the yellow fever, we have some of that issue, and we do facilitate. Now, the thing about vaccines is we would like to see a largest cohort of persons immunized. Okay. And even though I don't want to compare human beings to other animal species, it's like a herd. Mm-hmm. So when we immunize a large enough of our population, they provide a herd protection against those few who cannot, for one reason or the other, take this vaccine. All right? It's like, the weaker ones, like if you look at how a herd of zebras or any other, they try to keep the strong ones stay outside, and if there's a lion or whatever. And sometimes you use that analogy to try to emphasize that, even though we'd like a lot, most people to accept, if there are few people who cannot, we like all, accept, but if there are few who cannot have the vaccine for one reason or another, those should be protected. Correct. Right? And then there are some precautions that we also would instill if someone is unable to, like the yellow fever. I would issue them an exemption letter because of an allergy or some other reaction or something, they travel. We would make sure we go through carefully with them what are some of the precautions that they should take to ensure that, because we care about people's lives and their health, right? We're not just there to force a vaccine on you. The vaccine is there for a purpose, but if you can't take it, we will tell you other ways in which you can protect yourself and ensure that.
That's good information. Let me take a call here. Let's see who we have. A very good evening.
Hello, good evening.
Hi, turn on your television, please. Thank you.
Yes.
Yes. Could you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yes. I have 4 children, and I understand about the HPV and all these other stuff. I just need to know the side effects of taking the injection. Because all we're hearing about why we should, but we're not hearing anything about side effects and so.
Okay, while you're on, were you immunized you remember primary school when they used to give us lollipop and stuff like that and give us those immunizations? Were you a part of that?
No, I was not.
You were never immunized?
No.
Okay, all right. Well, Doc, I'll answer your phone off the air. Just stay in tune, okay? Turn back your television. Doc, what are some of the side effects?
Yes. So, but the research has shown this new version, this Gardasil, which is this 4, is quite easily acceptable. We use quite a minimal amount most of the actions is probably the fear of the needle. I think that's probably the most scary part of it. There is a bit of stinging and burning and so on, and very, very rarely a reaction can occur at that site. All right. Other than that, we have no evidence of any other massive, life-threatening.
No, like I told Dr. Scott last week, I went because I wanted to host this and I wanted to be as informed as I can. I went and I do some research.
I thought you said you went to get a vaccine.
Oh.
That's the best way to know how it works.
Yeah. And the research says that there can be some nausea, accompanied by some vomiting. They said that there can be a slight rash in the area of the vaccine. And they also said that I think the statistics is 1 in 100,000 would get some kind of beyond that a reaction. And then I thought that if we're doing 40,000, that we are nowhere
like more than double of that.
Yeah, we are nowhere close to falling within that. But there are some. I think they said that sometimes it can produce or exacerbate the cramps, menstrual cramps for the girls and so on.
So that's why the cutoff limit for, we even tried, that's why the 9 to 13, and the age group is so important for these particular reasons. As you start giving older children, older girls, you tend to run into a little bit more conflict of, they might have started their menstrual cycle and things like that, right? So,
but the reason I try to, I suggest that we give, because when we did when we were called in as religious leaders to be informed about it, we were told that we have to go back to our communities. And so the reason I'm saying that we should give all is because you don't want a situation where a girl comes home, she's vomiting and stuff like that, and she wasn't told that it's likely that she might vomit.
Which might not even be from that.
Right, but I'm saying, and then her mother now tells her father says, you see, they didn't tell us that the girl going to go through this, and then, you see what I mean, the negative things. So if they know full disclosure.
In health and with symptoms and signs and so on, there is no one-on-one relationship, because there could be so many other things that she could have drunk or eaten something or anything
but
else.
But I'm just saying, in as much as the literature is saying that these are some of the things that for full disclosure, if we say it, then the mother said, oh, well, they did say.
Well, those are the things they do at the discussion with the PTA and with the teachers and so on. There will be a briefing, there will be adequate exchange between the health professionals, the teachers, and the parents.
Okay.
As this
All right, let me take another call.
We don't want to scare people about side effects and so on.
Right. No, I'm not saying I'm not saying to scare, but you understand what I'm saying.
Correct.
I'm saying that if we don't say what can be, and then it happens. Then it complicates it, because then a mother calls her 2 friends whose daughter have not gone as yet, and they say, well, look, you all don't let your daughter get that thing because she got rash from her hand, and they tell me a thing and got nothing. You see what, you know what I mean? So for full disclosure, the parents say, all right, let's go. Caller, good evening.
Good evening. Good evening to you both.
Thank you.
Dr. Sastio.
Yes.
I'm just wanting to know, how soon are these vaccines going to be available for the children in the schools?
All right.
Okay, I'll take you. Let's listen off the air. Go ahead, Doc.
Yeah, so we have the vaccine doses already. They are in country. And as soon as we roll out this campaign, the official launch is on Monday in Barteka. Yeah. All right, so from then onwards, vaccines will be available coming down to the end of this month. We anticipate about 6 to 8 weeks that, the campaign will reach everyone we are hoping to get to. Beautiful. All right, so it's here. The vaccines are here. The doses are here.
Let's take another call. Caller, good evening.
Yes, good evening. What I want to know is it possible for us to get the technology to make what's stopping United Nations from giving us this formula if they're so interested in saving the world from epidemics and all these things? Why isn't this? It was aid to this and that and this kind of stuff. So why it's for us to do it? Because there's a trust issue. I'm saying this seriously because I have seen DVDs concerning Garda sale and concerning other incidents. There's even a Falcon program where he said that President Kennedy's grandson came to him, right, because no one in Congress would take it up, about a report by a whistleblower about certain things they were doing, the vaccine.
Okay.
Right?
All right, good. So I'm gonna, right, so you can listen, I'm gonna try to answer that and then we're gonna let Doc go from there. Now, and we had, these are some of the calls we had last week. My thing is this. First thing, and he didn't say it, but when we hear Farrakhan, we know, Farrakhan is suggesting that these vaccines are part of population control, that it's a way of reducing the black population in the world, okay? For all intents and purposes, you are black tonight, right?
Everybody,
good. So you black, right?
Chinese,
so, and what I was explaining last week, because I did the research, this vaccine, the HPV vaccine, first came out about 10 years ago in Canada. And then it moved from Canada, it went to the US, it went to Australia. And most of the persons who have since been vaccinated are white people. So if they...
And their rates are lowest when it comes
to the cervical, right. Cancer. And so if the intention is to kill black people, they started the experiment with white people. Okay, I just want you to know that. That's number one. Number two, it's 10 years since persons have been vaccinated. And they are finding there's no outlier. I mean, a few outlier, but for the millions of people, and I think it's something like 300 million people who have since been vaccinated. So while we can use some kind of checks and balance and we could be skeptical, we have to let logic take its part. And what they're showing is that the girls and the persons who have been vaccinated, when they track them in the study, it's proving that they are not attracting the cervical and the HPV virus compared to those
who are still reproductive.
And they're still reproductive and so on. But so you tell us what's the medical answer to what the guy is asking.
Well,
why can we not get the
production? I think the production issue is a little more complicated in that these companies, and I don't know what is the the global thought, and WHO has been working a lot with a lot of the companies who incidentally would have invested a lot. So they have some patent on a lot of these products, and it includes medicines too. So that debate is going on. They have released a lot of the items that they have patents on for development and use in many countries, including some of the pharmaceuticals. That's why we are able to actually procure and distribute to all the persons with HIV in Guyana the right medicines that they need, because if we were to buy on the open market without those kinds of agreement, we won't be able to afford it. Right. So the same goes for the vaccine, and I think there are a lot of movement in terms of, especially through PAHO. And I would encourage persons to also visit PAHO website. Okay. Don't just Google HPV. Yeah. Go on the PAHO and the WHO website. Yeah. These are reputable international organizations, and the Centers for Disease Control in the USA. The European has a site also that you can visit there. There is a site from India, China, and as you said, in Australia. You can visit reputable sites where scientific evidence are presented. Rather than go and read Google, you might get different opinions and so on. You can do that too.
But you know what's funny?
Confirm,
I wanted to go because again, we live in an age, and I'm a preacher, and I tell preachers all the time, you can't preach like these days like you used to preach long ago. Right. You have to understand that there is some
access
youth who's right there, who's going to Google what you say.
Everything you say.
So what I did is I actually went rough. I didn't research those careful PAHO. No, right. I Googled HPV.
You Google like what the regular person would
everything, right? Okay, let's take another call. Caller, good evening.
Yes, it's just one of the questions I had asked. One of the reports was that we only used to have about 4 or 5 vaccines before: yellow fever, measles, and about 4 or 3 or 4 or 5.
Come on, we always had
Now
7.
it has increased about like 50, 60 different types of vaccines.
16.
All right. Let me see.
That's one last point.
No.
And the final point is that they're not telling you where the cervix is coming from, this problem, this cancer, this. They're not solving those problems of how we getting all these things if they're so smart.
All right. Okay, good. Let me see now. Let me see if I can, right. Let me see if I can track this here. So first thing you say is that there were only a few vaccines, and now there are several vaccines. You would admit that it is because people were dying from stuff that they didn't diagnose, so they didn't know why they were dying, and so they were dying. So now we have vaccines based on what the people were dying from. So the fact that you have more vaccines now should not be a negativity. That should be a plus, because we now know why people are dying and we're trying to save it. As it comes to the causative factor, we know that personal preferences and choices have a lot to do with what makes you sick, what you eat, what you drink, sometimes where you live, a number of things, your stress factor. So you come down with things that another person might not have because of certain choices that you make. All right, that was your take.
Exactly. And yeah, we have always had a fairly reasonable, we had smallpox, we had polio, we had tetanus, mumps, rubella, measles, and then yellow fever started coming in. And then we added rotavirus, pneumococcal. We have a pentavalent. Hepatitis, correct? Hepatitis B, and now, so there are meningococcal, there are other things.
And what do you call the flu shots? What would that come on?
Influenza.
Okay.
But we don't, that's not a regular part of our
no, I'm just talking
schedule,
about
but that's also a vaccine.
Yeah, because in the United States, in fact, they you vaccine during the...
and when we have an outbreak here, we would usually procure. When we had the H1N1, we were able to bring H1N1, and we covered especially persons, the elderly. So there's also the target groups that you can administer these vaccines. But things like tetanus, smallpox, we've eliminated smallpox from the world using vaccines. There was no other intervention. So, the point about finding the underlying cause, and in this instance is sexual transmission. How are you going to address that issue if you have an infection that is transmitted sexually from one person to another that is causing such a big problem? And we really need to be conscious of those people, as you correctly said when we started, those people who are affected by cancers, regardless of whichever type. We're talking about cervical cancer here, but it's a devastating thing, for families, for individuals, and it changes their lives.
When I was at the workshop, one of the questions that the doctor asked is, how many people know someone who has died with cancer? Most people put up their hands.
About half of every audience, yes.
And then what she asked, which was a jolt, she said, any of the persons you knew or you know who died from cancer, was it a painless death?
Yeah.
And the point that she was making is that cancers are painful, okay? Yes. And so some people say, well, my daughter is not sexually active, so she don't have to get the vaccine. And so what about when she becomes sexually active? Like you said, if in 6 months they get both the initial and the booster, and I heard Dr. Ado Crow say the same thing, that it gives you a lifelong...
And it's up to you after then. We are not interfering with people's sexual action, who they, whatever. We are trying to provide them with a good opportunity to live healthy, even within the environment where there are all these risks.
Yeah. All right. I want to get back to this today. A lot of people say, well, I did not get any immunization when I was small. And so, and look at me now, I'm big, and nothing happened to me.
I'm not sure about that.
What?
Once you have this little scar, remember they used to scratch you here, and they used to put the smallpox, and they did a campaign
so they did it
throughout in the
without
50s, 60s,
okay.
70s. Once you have a little mark here, a lot of people don't, because they got them as children,
Okay,
and maybe their parents aren't around to say,
So
you
what,
have a
what was
vaccine.
that vaccine that you used to get? When I was in primary school, I remember the nurses
BCG.
come in and giving you candy and
Right,
to inject.
that was smallpox,
So that
most
was,
likely.
So what it is
Most
you
of
got
it
when
is
you were unknown?
BCG.
The one where you got as a baby. You were saying that?
BCG, that's a BCG. That's
Okay.
against tuberculosis.
Okay,
So that was
okay.
given a long, long time ago too.
Okay.
And they had different methods of, administering it. Now we have these very unique ways, they have the drops for polio and so on.
Right. But that's what I was saying. What I
Different
was saying
methods.
is that the persons who did not participate in the vaccinations when they could remember, who were saying,
Right.
well, look at me now, I'm doing good. It comes back to the herd mentality.
That's
that we
right. They
spoke
might
about.
very well be,
It
if
is
they didn't get, they were protected.
because of,
The other people
of
got.
all of us
Yes,
who
who got.
were the guinea pigs,
Yeah.
right? So because you didn't get it, it doesn't mean that that you are that you're lucky. It might
Yes.
just mean because all of us got it, it reduced the likelihood for a breakout
Right.
of that strain.
Measles is the classic example, for those older, and it would probably be people above 50 who would probably have encountered any measles in among their families, the siblings, and so on, and maybe deaths that it had caused.
And another thing too is that when you read, they talk about some other than just the normal thing that we talk about, the fever and so on. Some people say that the vaccine is associated with autism and epilepsy and so on.
We've since
And so what I ask people is, of all the people you know who are vaccinated, how many of them are autistic?
Right.
Of
Well, that
all the
started
people
with
that
a
you
little
know.
flawed research, and I think that's one of the things that
go
President
ahead.
Kennedy had looked at in his time, and this was quite a long time back, when there were some research done that showed, incorrectly, I must say, some of these effects, which they were able to prove to be wrong.
Correct.
All right. So I think that's where we are in the world now.
Yeah. So callers, I want you to engage us for the next few moments here. Why do you think you should get the vaccine, and why not? You understand?
Any questions they have?
And
about
if you
it,
have any
yes.
questions, we want to answer your questions, because we want you to go out and to share this information. One of the things that we talked about in the workshop is, if there was a vaccine against the AIDS virus, would you take the vaccine? You understand?
Yeah.
Because
Or malaria.
or cancer.
malaria,
If a vaccine came up
cancer.
tomorrow that can cure all kind of
all
cancers,
kinds of
would
things.
you would you take it? So we have that situation. So again, there are no any negativity from the vaccines. They are just outliers. There are no within the general population, or among the people who get these vaccines, there are no major side effects. Some people talk about the vaccine. The other thing I read is that they say the vaccine makes the children promiscuous. So the pendulum swings.
Yeah.
Some say the vaccine makes the children promiscuous. Some says it makes them
It's what's out there,
not
man.
able to get
without the
not
vaccine,
able
we
to
have to
get-
protect our children and train
Exactly.
them the right way and expose them to.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So doc, they can the 6 months. This is a concern. Do you have to get the vaccine? After you get the first one, immediately after 6 months, or within
the 6 months. Within the 6 months.
So how
or else
soon?
I think there is a little leeway beyond the 6 months, but we would really like to see, as I said, we want to make maximum protection of this whole effort. All right? And dragging it along, it might still work, but, it's a little bit less, we can't guarantee that you'll get the full protection. So we'd like to see the second dose given within the 6 months.
Okay. And you're saying that if you heard some callers, if the parents, one parent say yes and one parent say no, you're saying that your staff are being trained to deal with those situations.
We want to speak with them, and we want to, engage them and come up with the best solution for the child.
Okay. And what is the ethical thing to do? Is the ethical thing if we get to an impasse to go ahead and protect the child by way of the immunization, or to not protect the child? Who makes the final call?
Well, the final call lies with the legal parent, guardian, or whoever it is, and they will, so agree. And I don't know, there might be some room for some mediation. We would like to see some of the health centers, some of the church groups, and so on more involved in that mediation, because an impasse is as good as opinions are there. If you can get those good understanding. And so we are appealing to all of our religious communities to help in that process too, whenever it do occur. So I think in your instance, at the workshop, those were some of the areas that we are looking to the religious communities to help us with some of those. We don't want to force this though. We don't want to force this anymore. We want to compromise, and we want to work with, the best available knowledge, and for people to agree. All right.
I was reading that there are about 5 or 6 states in the United States that have made this vaccine compulsory. And that is how the lady was able, Michigan, that's how she was able to be incarcerated. States. And I'm wondering, I was at the funeral of the 2 old ladies that were murdered, and I heard the Minister of Health, and she was saying that we're not caring for one another sufficiently. That there's a breakdown in how we relate to one another. And I'm saying that in a society like we have, where and she talked about the fact that because we don't care, we are with just 700,000 people, we are losing lives. So I'm wondering if given this, the small population we have, if it shouldn't be made, if a consideration cannot be made for it to be, because we're losing a lot of our people, and I'm wondering if that conversation should not be had, because if we have all this false and misinformation out there, and we have parents who would be inclined to not have the children have it, I'm wondering if a consideration. The reason I'm asking that is because, like you said, a lot of us are around today and don't have the effects of all these debilitating and deadly things because we were immunized. And what would be our take today if we were hobbling around with polio or one of those, if we were to find out that our parents made the decision not to immunize us. So it's kind of I think in the interest of public health, that there needs to be some a look or some thought given. Depend again, you will know, because you roll out on the 16th really, and I guess you will know either directly or anecdotally what is the take.
Historically, I think our population has been pretty receptive to vaccines. As a matter of fact, we have parents who come to clinic, and if they're not given their vaccine, they create, they go all out. They go all out. They complain. They call my office. They call minister. So we got to make sure, there's a highly sensitive population who understands the benefits of vaccines. I think that's a goodwill that we are moving forward on. If we find after these rounds of immunization that, our rates we're really struggling to get that level of coverage, I think then we'll have to start thinking seriously about what other measures. But at this time, I am very confident in Guyanese, and I am sure that we will top even the ministry's targets that they set in getting these. As a matter of fact, I am afraid that we might have a greater demand than we have a greater demand than what we are catering for.
Let me take another call. RP missed that call. Doc, talk about the consent, because so there's a form that
yes,
is a
there
formal,
is a
formal form. The child takes it
they should
home.
sign in. They take it home, and
Okay.
they would have gone through it. And if there are questions, the teachers are also prepared on this, so they can sign off on that. You have the right to decide how you want to go. All right. We are, as I said, we are looking forward for the majority or most or all of our parents complying and agreeing with this intervention. It's for a good purpose.
You know, we have a small population in Guyana, but you know what I noticed as I traveled up? Guyanese read a lot.
They do.
In fact, I think we sell more newspapers in Guyana than any of the other Caribbean.
Okay.
I'm talking about per capita.
Yeah.
Guyanese,
I don't know.
they read a
Yes,
lot. And I work in the media, so those are
Yeah.
things I look for
Yeah.
when I travel. And so Guyanese are very informed. It's a pity sometimes we put that information, we don't always use that information.
Right, and that's the whole thing with health literacy, you know, that you have to actually convert. So a lot of people know about things with weight control and sugar consumption, but we don't practice
we don't
sometimes.
practice.
So
Hold
we
on.
have to convert those to actions.
Caller, good evening.
Hello, good night.
Hello.
Jeffrey.
Hello.
I was going to call to see if I could take the vaccine.
All right. How old are you?
15.
15. All right.
15.
Where are you from?
It's Ayana Park, Jeffrey.
Ayana. Okay, so
Well, you go to your health center in your community, whichever community you are. Go to the health center and discuss it with the nurse there. All right?
Yeah.
All right. Good,
All right.
Ayana.
Thank you, Ayana, and good to hear from you. Tell your mama say good night.
Yeah.
All right. All right. So, like you were saying, and that's a good friend of mine there, Ayana. Persons need to begin to use the information that they
Yes.
have, because it's good information, and if you apply it, you know, you stave off a lot of the negativities that come. And you know, one of the earlier callers was talking about how do you prevent, you know, our choices.
Yeah.
If we gotta eat differently,
And
we
good
gotta
sexual
sleep
practice,
differently,
good,
we gotta
behaviors.
exercise, we gotta, you know, and you're talking, I guess the elephant in the room here is that this is a sexually transmitted
It is,
disease.
yeah.
We have to be cognizant of
And
how
that's a
we,
tricky one when it comes to doing interventions outside of what we're doing,
yeah.
right?
Expand on that.
Yeah, well, like if you're going to try to, you know, we had this challenge with HIV, promoting condom use and all these practices and, you know, restricting people to a faithful partner. We advise all the time, but can you guarantee any of that, you know? And here again, we look towards our civil society and everyone else to help to. But if for one reason or another a person is unable to do this, then that person becomes vulnerable and at risk. A lot of people in sexual relationships, you know, it's not always a purely voluntary thing. You know how this society is, right?
I know. Doc, talk a little about there's this talk of the possibility that condoms do not prevent the transfer of some of the HPV viruses?
Some of it, yes, because some of it could also, as I said, the initial research had shown not just sexual contact, but also contact, all right? So beyond a condom or a female condom or whatever, there is contact, other contact in the genital areas and so on, where a lot of, most of the time the warts and so on are not, you know, within the sexual organs themselves, they're in the peripheral areas and so on, and contact can still happen, right? So it has not been proven as yet, but it is effective. Condoms are effective against protection against some sexually transmitted infections, which we all know about. But in this instance, we're not.
So let me see if I get you here. If you have, if somebody touched their genitals and then touch the genitals of their partner, the virus can be transferred like that.
Or any other warts on the body that might be, you know, also attributed to one of these strains of HPV.
Okay. talk about how do you get rid of the warts? Because a lot of persons complain of warts in the genital areas and so on. So how do you get?
I am not a specialist in this area, but I do know that there are treatment options available for removal of them, but there's also medication that can be used also to treat some of those. Unfortunately for HPV infections, there are no approved medicines as yet that
once
you've contracted it, there is no cure or any medicine that you can take that can cure you of it.
Well, I think you need to say that again, though, because some people might figure, well, if I miss the vaccine, I can catch it. I can catch it up later on.
There are ongoing research, so I don't want to say it as if it, I'm sure, but there are research still going on to try to identify. Look at HIV. We thought we never had the drugs that can interact, and now we are actually seeing people who are on treatment, the virus has almost disappeared, or they're undetectable. You can't detect any of them in their bodies because of the medication. So there are possibilities, and the future does hold, some promise for all these organisms. But I still think that, and what the vaccine does is the vaccine stimulates your body to produce the right kinds of antibodies against these invading organisms. So even if you do get exposed to them, whether casually or otherwise, you are ready for them, as it were. And that's the whole thing with all the other vaccines. Even this, one of the more recent ones we introduced, called the rotavirus vaccine, and that helps protecting against a virus that causes diarrhea. And we have seen tremendous decreases in diarrheal disease. Diarrheal disease was associated with a lot of deaths among especially the under 5 age group in the past. And we've seen tremendous improvements in terms of death from diarrhea. Georgetown Hospital used to have a whole ward of children with malnutrition and diarrhea when I practiced about 20 years ago. Now, it's an incidental occurrence. They manage quite well. Beautiful. And the vaccine has impacted that, the rotavirus.
All right. So, folks, we are at the top of the hour here. Our time is just about up. I'm going to let Doc make a final appeal, and then I'll close out. Yes. Doc, any final word?
Well, thanks very much for having me, and I do appreciate the questions that the clients. Please feel free to contact the ministry if you have additional questions. We hope that we do have a Facebook page that you can visit also to look for HPV, and it's a big deal. We dubbed it. So please check that out. Remember, tomorrow at 4 p.m. at the Stabrook Market Square, we have a live concert, and here not only will we have some excellent performers, local performers, we will also be distributing information, answering your questions, and interacting with the public. Please come out and support that event. It's free. We had a concert yesterday for the school children. That was a success, and we are looking towards the launch in Bartik on Monday.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, folks, you heard it there. So we thank you very much, Doc.
Thank you very much.
Blessings on you.
Blessings.
Thanks for joining. Next week, same time, Safe TV presents as we continue with this month. Some people are calling it Pinktober. I try to get my pink tie.
Yes.
I hope you like my pink tie. Okay, for those of you who aren't planning to go to church tomorrow, I'll be at Agricola. So find a church. Get to church tomorrow, okay? The sermon title is You Got to Get Out to Get It. Get out to get it. I'm looking at Peter tomorrow. All right, until then, God bless you. Have a great weekend. And stay safe. And until we meet again or until we talk again, may God continue to hold you in his divine hands. Thank you for joining Safe TV Presents. Good night and God bless you.